America's soldiers. They're there when we need them, too often forgotten when their job is done and the peace is won. For better or worse, we've been at war throughout our nation's history. From Gettysburg to Baghdad.
I was attached to the Annihilator Company, so anything they did, I did, sir.
We flew the first all-female Black Hawk mission in Iraq.
San Juan Hill to Saigon. The Argonne to Afghanistan.
I was a driver slash assistant machine gunner.
From Iwo Jima to the unemployment line.
When I got back, I was homeless. You know, I went from having everything I wanted to having nothing.
He tells me my daughter's crying, she's hungry, we're living in a vehicle.
I'm taking it one day at a time.
I don't feel right laying down in my bed knowing there's a veteran out there living in a car.
Every soldier's journey is a personal one, a journey to hell and back, but a journey, finally, to what? A parade? A handshake from a stranger? A free drink at the airport bar? But how about a job? In our history, there were times we honored our vets with great fanfare, and other times we ignored them. All too often, our debt to our vets is a debt unpaid. These three soldiers have survived the hell and uncertainty of war. They just might need a hand surviving the uncertainty of the homecoming at the end of their journey. Hi, I'm Vin Scully. Tonight we'll begin The Journey, a look at this national dilemma, one veteran at a time, following three Americans from discharge to the first day on the job. At a time when veteran unemployment is at record highs, we will examine one program, America Wants You, a bold new idea rooted in action that really works. We'll experience firsthand if it's possible for these three veterans to secure their small piece of the American dream. As a nation, it's the very least we can do. Let the journey begin. For some Americans in the last decade, a day on the job was a life-or-death deal. For Specialist Matt Guillory, the job he was hired to do was in a place called Iraq.
My name is Matthew Guillory. I'm 27 years old, and I was a specialist in the Arkansas Army National Guard. I was deployed in Iraq for 9 months. I served 6 years altogether. I did convoy escorting slash assistant machine gunner. We would have a group of 3 or 4 people per truck, and we had Humvees and ASVs, armored security vehicle. We would have anywhere between 10 to 20, 25 trucks. We would put them in between 2 vehicles. We'd have a couple vehicles up front with one farther ahead, just kind of scout the area before the convoy arrives. And then we'd have a couple vehicles in the back for rear support. Ambushes are one of the things you're worried about. I think the main thing's the IEDs. IEDs, improvised explosive device. They get creative with them, put them inside trash and dead animals on the side of the road, and pretty much anything out there could be an IED. There was a couple accidents we had. There was one IED went off, and we had to bring a guy into town to the hospital. It was normally a town we avoided. We went into town to bring him to the hospital. Fear was the last thing on my mind. I didn't think about it. I just thought about getting it done, getting the guy to safety, and continuing on with the mission.
For many young American men and women, the idea of serving their country changed in one fateful day.
I enlisted after 9/11. My father was in Desert Storm, and I was following his footsteps.
Even though he passed away when I was 14, he's still my role model. He's still the guy I looked up to, and I tried to be like him as much as possible.
I was going to stay in until I got deployed. I was going to make sure I served the country.
When the tour of duty ended, and with his discharge behind him, a returning veteran too often enters a new kind of hostile terrain, the home front job market. Since 2008, public sector employers traditionally welcoming to veterans were laying off workers at a record pace. Hiring freezes was spreading nationwide, but families still needed to be fed. Bills needed to be paid.
We were scraping the bottom of the barrel, doing what we had to, just to make enough to scrape by paying bills. Like the car payment, I was having to go up there and see if they could split the payment up.
With the American economy limping out of an historic recession, combat veterans like Matt found themselves competing with a new army, an army of the unemployed. Without a college degree, Matt went into this battle unarmed. It didn't take long for his situation to become desperate.
And I'd go out and fill out applications almost every day, and nobody would call back. I felt like, being a veteran and people didn't want me.
I was born and raised in Los Angeles, sir. I have a beautiful wife of 7 years. We've actually been together for 9. She's been through the thick and thin with me and has been there every step of the way to help me through the good and the bad. Back in 2007, we had our gorgeous daughter, Zoe, and I was lucky enough to actually be there during her birth because I was deployed at the time.
The Vet Hunters Project, I founded it partly because I started thinking, well, what good are resources if resources ain't making it out to where the homeless veterans live? It's unacceptable. So Lewis calls me up crying, and it was bad. It was, you're my only hope. We don't have anything. I'm hurting my family. My daughter's crying. She's hungry. I need your help. We're living in a vehicle. And with Lewis, it's all about setting him up for success.
I had received a phone call from Matt McCoy and Drew Metz from Southwestern Energy. They had told me they wanted to fly me to Little Rock, Arkansas to speak with a couple of their managers at the sand plant and also with the maintenance side, sir. I packed my things, and the next day I was on a flight to Little Rock, Arkansas, and I completely loved it. I enjoyed every second of being at the sand plant. It just felt like a second home to me. FedEx guys out front.
Then Tony had a surprise visitor.
How you doing, sir? Yes, sir.
What Tony got wasn't a handout. It was a concrete plan for a future. But would it work?
Awesome. Thank you very much. Have a good day, sir.
For the first time since he returned from combat, Tony saw a glimmer of hope.
Moment of truth, sir.
It sounded almost too good to be true, but Tony wanted that job at the Southwestern Energy Water Treatment Plant.
Oh, excuse me. Kind of nervous now.
But would they want him? Lucan, Minnesota. You can't get more heartland of America than here. And here is where Andrea Bond was born and raised.
You want to feed him too?
Andrea is the oldest of 5 children and the only daughter. As would be expected, growing up around a group of roughneck farm boys, she learned how to fight.
I was a dreamer. I was always called the dreamer kid. Grew up on a dairy farm, the oldest of 5 and the only girl. Grew up always wanting a challenge, always looking for a new challenge. Always knew that, growing up in a small dairy farm, that there was so much more out there. So when I met the recruiter, asked him to come and meet my parents because I knew I had to butter him up because I needed their signature at the age of 17.
I myself was in the Army National Guard and my husband was in, so I was very proud of her.
At the time she was young, and stuff, and in school, I had a sign for her,
Wanted her to go for it and make, be all you can be. But she was 17, and I wanted her to wait for just a little bit more to make sure.
So when he came over that evening, it was on my 17th birthday. My parents said, okay. They told me to wait 2 weeks. So I waited 2 weeks and I said, okay, are you ready to sign now?
Andrea joined the Army National Guard and then applied to Officer Candidate School to become a pilot.
I went to college, and while I was going to college, I pursued an aviation degree. When I first enlisted, I was the first and the only female in a unit for 1.5 years, which was a challenge in itself. To me, I was nothing different. I never thought of it being a very male-centric job. To be accepted into an aviation slot, you have to do a board, take a written test, have to take a flight physical and then ultimately be accepted and get a slot to go.
But with any career path that any of us undertake, sometimes real life intrudes. Events happen that put us off our stride.
What happened to me throughout officer candidate school was my brother, who was 15 months younger than me, was killed. And he was my best friend. It was an auto accident, wrongful death lawsuit, and I'm not a quitter. But I will tell you that that was the hardest emotional struggle I had ever had, was to continue on in something that is already very emotionally and mentally challenging, to then throw the loss of my best friend and my brother on top of that. I was going to college in Mankato, and my mom was coming up that morning to visit me, and it was very cold. It was December 28th, 2001, and it had been a very cold week after Christmas. And a call came over the pager. My parents are both first responders, and my mom is an EMT, volunteers. And a call came over the pager for the ambulance, and it also said that the person that the call was for was already passed away. And my dad tells me that he remembers saying to himself, "I better go, that's probably someone's kid." And he was on his way to the city hall to get the ambulance, and there was 2 people that went on that call that day. The other gentleman who went on the call was getting the ambulance ready, and a phone call came in, and the person said, "Is Terry or Lori Orada going on the call today?" And the man said, "Yes, Terry's coming in." And the person said, "Well, we don't know which one it is, but it's one of his sons that has already been passed away." He'd been passed away for about 10 to 12 hours, they figured. He had a very hard time with it. We were very supportive for him and there with him. But one day that totally clicked for me. I said, "Dad, honestly, who better to be there with him that day and for him that day than you?" And he said, "You know what? You're right."
The tragedy of Daniel's death left Andrea shaken, but not deterred. She'd already taken a warrior's path. The journey will continue in a moment. Now, tested by adversity she could never have anticipated, Andrea maintained her focus and never lost sight of her goal.
About halfway through flight school, when it hit the anniversary of my brother's death, I had a very hard time. I did very well in flight school. And when it hit that time, I started dropping down in ranking from 1 to 2 to down to 16. And when I saw that ranking of 16, it hurt. I was like, what the heck are you doing to yourself? It took a phone call from my mom saying, "Hey, the whole family's coming down to watch you graduate in a couple of months." I hung up the phone. I thought, I gotta get my stuff together. So I ended up being an honor grad, and they came down. So very proud of that, very proud of that.
She graduated with honors from flight school, and shortly thereafter, her unit was deployed to the war zone.
My lucky princess.
I'm going in from Kuwait, and I'm going somewhere where they're truly gonna shoot at me.
On Christmas Day 2007, Lieutenant Andrea Orada made history.
December 25th, Christmas Day 2007, we flew the first all-female Black Hawk mission in Iraq. The mission was 2 aircraft, so 2 pilots per aircraft and 2 crew chiefs, which also function as door gunners per aircraft. And I think it was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, so it was dark out, and it was cold. It does get cold in Iraq. So we all had our Santa hats on, and we're trying to be festive. The one male was the journalist that came along with us on the mission. And we were supposed to fly Michelle Bachmann that day, but for whatever reason, that didn't happen. We ended up flying a bunch of infantry guys. And so when you have your flight helmet on and you have your hair tucked in, you have your visor down, they don't know who you are. So at one point we shut down for fuel, and the door gunner behind me, whose name is Michelle, took her helmet off. And she said this guy just kept staring at her. And he just said, "I'm sorry, I've never seen a female crew chief or door gunner before." And she kind of laughed at him and said, well, look around, because everybody in this aircraft's female and everybody on the other aircraft's female. And so at that time, I was climbing out and I took off my helmet and I was just kind of trying to hear what was going on. And he just kept staring at me then. And he goes, this is the best Christmas ever.
And now after getting back, honestly, it's just a normal day, another mission.
Andrea fit right in with the other combat chopper pilots. She had the demeanor, the superstition, and the swagger that earned her respect among her fellow pilots.
I fly with a certain few things every time, along with this princess right here. I take along my lucky princess, and she always rides right here in the door with me. Always have to have candy too. It's usually hot tamales is my choice, so they gotta stay in the door right next to me because I gotta have readily access to some mid-mission energy, we'll say, and water, and usually a hat or gloves or whatever else little random things I need. But the mini princess and the hot tamales and the water are a must every time.
Sir, I actually have an offer of employment from Southwestern Energy Sand Company. They're actually accepted me as an employee for Material Handler 1, and I'm just kind of in shock right now and ready to talk to my wife about this. I'm really excited. This is actually what I was hoping for. Really wanted to work at the sand company. I have an offer of employment from Southwestern Energy. They are offering me employment as a material handler. I'm also eligible for the company's pension plan, 401k, medical, dental, vision, and life insurance. And it sounds amazing. Excited?
Taking it all at once. I guess I'm gonna make him make this call. I'm here for the ride, whatever he wants to do. So the job's wonderful. It's just leaving leaving home again. We were really excited coming back here. So that's, I guess I'm dealing with that. That's the only thing that's kind of holding me back, but I know we're gonna come up with the best decision for ourselves and for our family.
Sorry about that. The little one wanted to join. It's gonna be a drastic change because we actually just recently moved back here to Los Angeles, getting reacquainted with both of our sides of the family, and now we're being given the opportunity of a lifetime to make a change. And this will be the second biggest one we've ever made in our lives. The first one was obviously joining the military as a couple, and now it's this, and I'm sure we'll make the right decision.
I think it's telling my family again that we're probably gonna have to move again. So that's just the big thing that I'm thinking about right now. So.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk it over, sir.
Yeah.
I'd like to give her a better understanding of everything that's to come, and we'll make the best decision as a family. It's not gonna be one-sided at all.
Yeah.
I view this as an honor and privilege, sir. I was speechless when I was called back, sir, honestly, and I'm taking it one day at a time to see where it leads me, sir.
7 years after an honorable discharge, Matt is now living near Little Rock, Arkansas, with his new girlfriend and her 3 sons.
We plan on trying to have one also. We want a little girl. We're looking around trying to find a mechanical bull, and I'm going to attempt to ride it. You're done? You don't want a bite of this? No, and then you're not done.
Matt had heard that there was a mechanical bull at the county fair, and although this day it was broken, he decided to try his luck on the next best thing.
Yeehaw!
But still, without steady work, every day Matt felt he was sliding toward the bottom. But it turns out that there were people out there trying to help get veterans back on their feet.
My girlfriend hears about a veterans job fair on the news. It was set for the next day, the next morning, and I was broke. I had to borrow $20, put gas in the car to go to the job fair hoping to find a job.
When he got there, Matt found that there were companies like Southwestern Energy looking for workers. But as usual, they were looking for skilled workers. No rookies need apply.
Well, I was doing a bunch of odd jobs, mainly mechanic work. I've done water transfer. I did concrete work for a while. I've even DJ'd karaoke.
Southwestern Energy was pioneering a natural gas extraction process known as hydraulic fracturing, or fracking, where highly pressurized water, sand, and chemicals are pumped deep into layers of shale to release the gas. This fairly new process came into its own in the years Matt was deployed. Hydraulic fracturing requires water, lots and lots of water. In his years in the scorching Iraq desert, escorting convoys, one of the most valuable things Matt transported was water. In fact, Matt received training from the military supply contractor, Sweetwater, as a water transportation specialist. He had gone to the job fair sweating bullets, worrying that he might not have the skills that today's modern American industry was looking for. Fortunately, he was very wrong. So today, not in spite of, but because of his years in the military, Matt Guillory reports for work for his first day on the job.
Good morning. Matthew Guillory. I'm here to see you need a thresher.
Welcome. How are you today?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm Andrea.
Matthew.
You ready to start?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, come on back.
I was kind of worried starting a new job and all, but truth be told, I thought I might have forgotten some things, or that some things here would be different. They're supposed to be sizing us for jumpsuits. They're supposed to be flame retardant. I don't care for flame retardant, but regulations are regulations. Flame retardant doesn't breathe as easy, and especially in hot temperatures. I'm a prior heat casualty, so I know I'm gonna be sweating a lot, but I have a Camelback military issued me, and I'll be wearing that under my jumpsuit so I can get constant water intake.
The journey will continue in a moment. Halfway across the country, Matt Guillory is midway through his first workday in months, and he's still sweating it.
My job function, the title is a water transfer roustabout level 2, which is getting pumps out there, hooking the suction line to the pumps, and then hooking the discharge line up from the pump and pumping it out to the tanks.
He knows he has the skills, but he's rusty and unsure.
And there he goes again. Started out with 2 pieces, went to 3 pieces. Now he's hauling 4 pieces on it. So, you know, that's what you're looking for. Matt's gonna make it. He will be, he'll be an asset to SWN.
I had a blast on the Bobcat. It you know, made me think about whenever I used to drive him around, and you know, it felt more like play than it did work.
The years, the training, and the work ethic he learned in the Army are evident.
You don't want them, you want to be able to move them around a little bit in case you need to.
Now the question is, can he turn those skills into a job, into a life at Southwestern Energy?
As soon as he gets off work and leaves the yard, he calls me and we talk all the way up until he gets out here in the parking lot. And I'll tell the kids that Daddy's home, and they all get all excited. Yay, Daddy!
Normally, by the time I park the truck, I back the truck in. Shelby comes down the stairs to tell me hi, and she missed me and everything. And Hunter, the 2-year-old, he comes running up saying, you know, Daddy, Daddy. And
I say, Daddy.
Xander normally comes and greets me too. And I'm not used to that, and it's a really nice feeling. You know, I've seen it on TV and movies and stuff, and I didn't think, you know, I was like, oh, that's not how a family is, because that's not how my family was whenever I was growing up. But they do it, and so it's not a made-up thing, you know. Families actually do that.
The shadow hanging over Matt Guillory and thousands of other returning veterans is post-traumatic stress syndrome. For Tony Wiley, a boy from East LA, Arkansas was in some ways about as foreign as Iraq.
They've got boundaries over here across the lake. You see the pipe, it's pouring the water in. That's your honey hole. That's where you want to fish. There's some good fish in here.
I'm looking forward to it.
Everybody out here is friendly, and they'll help you out. And the more questions that you ask, that you can learn about different things, the better for you, the better for everybody else.
Some of Tony's training seemed like pretty basic stuff, but essential for safety.
I'm sure once I start putting, say, everything together and getting used to everything, I'm probably gonna have a little more questions.
Yeah. Well, that's what we want you to do, is ask questions. And don't be afraid to ask questions. I mean, you might think it might sound kind of crazy, but there ain't no stupid questions out here.
Everybody that comes to a mine site, this one or any other one, has to go through what they call task training. It's miner training on each and every piece of equipment, regardless of whether it be a haul truck, a loader, just anything. In this case, water truck.
The water truck, from what I've seen, is more of a dust prevention. The vehicles that come in and out of the plant, they tend to pick up a lot of dust, so they have water that's being sprayed onto the floor.
On any mine site, you have to keep the dust down, so we have to use non-potable water to put out on our roads to keep the dust down. So our neighbors or the EPA or anybody else that may have a concern with it, we just take care of it before it's an issue. This truck right here will run probably 16 hours out of 24 because even after dark, the roads are still hot and the wind's blowing, so they'll run till about 9 o'clock at night, and then they'll start again about 3 in the morning. We have 2 main roads here. We've got Frack Road, and it's got a lot of truck traffic on it, up to 100 trucks in 12 hours. So we have to keep that dust down to a point where all throughout the day, a truck that drives on Frack Road or the road going up to our main plant, the dust is controlled and there's no issue.
After a decade of service, Andrea found herself out of a job.
You know, in the military, it's, hey, here's your job, go figure it out. In the civilian world, I've done a few interviews, and it seems like you always hear, well, we'd love to hire you, but you don't have enough experience. Well, how do I get experience if you don't give me the opportunity? So you get the feeling that you need to have all these degrees and all of this training to get what I already have. And I think what's most important is not the technical stuff. It's the leadership, it's the management, it's the ability to multitask, it's the ability to understand that each person is an individual, that each resource is located somewhere else, but you gotta link them all together to make something work. And that's what we know. We are a resource that needs to be used. You don't have to train us on those things. Teach me how to use your computer. That's easy. You can teach somebody how to do that, but you can't teach them how to be a leader.
At the same time, she faced the life-threatening illness of her mother, Lori, from a rare autoimmune disease.
It's pretty emotional for me. I've had some very serious health issues. In 1983, I was diagnosed with linear scleroderma.
It is actually a very rare disease, autoimmune disorder. So we decided, us kids and some close family and friends decided to do a benefit for my mom and dad in our closest little community called Lucan. And we put together a bunch of different events to try to raise some money to help them with some of the medical bills and, of course, being out of work, try to make up for some of that financial loss that they've experienced.
And so the benefit, more for me, I'm looking at it as getting embraced by my community and just getting to see my friends and family again that I've been kind of sheltered from for the last 6 months.
Andrea's life experience trained her to see the big picture, to understand the complexity of the journey. She needs this resilience now more than ever as she deals with her mom's illness, even as she struggles to rebuild her life as a civilian.
I'm not going to try to take up too much time, so just want to say thank you. Love you guys very much. And I'm not going to cry.
Now it's time for her to get a new job, sort of, and begin her new life.
As far as the day, I mean, I don't think I've ever done a full day of interviews. This is my first experience interviewing for a real job outside of the military, so I'm excited. I think it's an awesome experience. I've never gotten to actually be flown somewhere or traveled anywhere for an interview. I've always done full-time military jobs, so this is a great experience for me and for my family, as I mentioned before. So I'm excited to see who I'm going to meet this afternoon. The people I met this morning were awesome people. Fantastic, fun, friendly, professional, and totally fitting with the military values and the military leaders I've worked with in the past. So I think, honestly, it's a great fit.
Thought I understood it. Do you have any questions about what you've heard so far? Does this make sense?
Actually, it does, because I did,
Yeah.
you mentioned research, and I did do some
Okay.
research. I think I'm pretty straight. so
Okay,
far.
well, good. Well, by way of introduction, I'm Keith Clay. I run the Supply and Logistics Organization.
Well, I was planning to only have 4 interviews today, and a additional interview that I was allowed to have was with Mark Bowling, and he has a community relations opportunity that I feel would be a fantastic opportunity for me. I love community relations. I love public affairs. I love building relationships, and you know, in the military, we always, the community, people are always wanting to understand what we do and want to see what we do, and that's huge.
The journey will continue in a moment.
When we first met, he told me that he was a veteran and that he had fought in Iraq before. I didn't really think much of it, you know, at first. And then after we eventually moved in together and I started seeing the health concerns that came with it, that's whenever the big interest of it hit me.
I didn't want to admit it to myself that I had PTSD. I just knew I had problems, and especially trouble sleeping.
I encouraged him to finally go to the doctor at the VA hospital.
So I finally went to the VA, and I found out my heart stopped growing at some point, so it's smaller than normal. And the PTSD and stress and anxiety, it causes chest pains.
PTSD not only affects the soldiers who saw combat, but their friends and loved ones when those demons come home to roost.
If Walmart's too packed, I can't go because I'm constantly looking around, I'm on edge. And
there are certain things that remind him of stuff that's happened over there, and that's whenever the anxiety sets in and the PTSD hits him and he starts having chest pain, remembering that stuff.
I have a hard time being crowded, especially around vehicles. In Iraq, there's VBIDs, vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices. They'll ram a car into you and blow you up. It's overwhelming most of the time. I think the PTSD is always going to be with me. I don't even bother hoping for it to just completely disappear because I don't think it's ever going to completely go away. I've been dealing with it for 4 years, and I'm just trying my best to learn to cope with it, and maybe it won't be so bad.
Matt and Shelby broke up shortly after this footage was taped.
I was in such deep despair. I did something that many veterans with PTSD do when confronted with serious issues. I tried to kill myself.
Dredging sand off a lake bottom is a pretty basic operation. Civilizations have been performing this unglamorous task in one way or another since the days of the Romans. Now, Tony will be learning to put this ancient idea to use as an essential part of the energy industry's most modern gas extraction process.
Welcome aboard. My name is Alandis. I'm one of the dredge operators. Before we start operations, we do a pre-op inspection. This is our chain here. So we'll be checking the teeth, the washers and rollers and pins. to make sure that we don't have anything missing because we don't want that to fall off in the water.
As always, there's a lot to learn for the new kid on the block.
I also do a visual inspection on my 2 hydraulic motors here, and I just basically the same thing, check for leaks, anything visibly defective. I'll make a note of it, and if I can, I go ahead and make corrections.
Okay.
Also do a visual inspection on the cable, make sure that all the bolts are there.
Tony quickly finds that there's going to be more to this job than just nuts and bolts.
Okay, now we're going to go upstairs to the cab, and I'll show you how to operate this machine.
Awesome. Sounds good to me.
The ancient task of dredging has become high tech.
Right, this is the cab here. We got 2 engines. This controls my front engine, the rear engine. Booster controls that control the pumps that are down there on the road there. These are my controls for my left and right winch, tail line, and ladder, and pump. So let's fire it up.
But after his years in the service, the technical side of the job is right in Tony's wheelhouse, literally.
I'm gonna lower the ladder down in the water.
You'd have to get the engine's RPM to a specific point in order to start pumping material up to the plant, right?
Right. And that's it, man.
Sounds good.
I thought it was a good thing for her. She's been in the military 16 plus years, and active duty really wasn't a possibility for her here in Minnesota. And she was looking to transition into a new career, which is very hard for military members when all your experience is military, and the civilian sector really doesn't recognize a lot of the skills and attributes that we can provide. So it was nice to see someone willing to interview her and recognize some of the talents and skills that she's picked up through the military. It's going to be her first experience really out in the civilian world with a civilian job. It's not wearing the uniform every day, so I'm excited for her.
Yeah, pretty sad. But I am very, very, very happy for her. Very proud of her. This is something she's worked really hard for. So it's an opportunity of a lifetime, and I tell all my kids, go for it. When you get a good opportunity, if someone offers you something like this, go for it. Make the best of it. We'll come visit, you know. Yeah, I'm gonna miss her deeply, and her daughter Cadence and her husband Brad were very, very close.
Her years in the National Guard had given Andrea experience in personnel and human resources, public relations, and community outreach, in addition to well-honed organizational and operational skills. So in the hard world of job hunting, Andrea had some all-important survival skills. She was not just a leader, but a leader with battle-tested experience.
Today is my 4th day, and I think it's going really well. Every day I seem to meet more people, I learn more things, and I realize how much more I have to learn and how many more people I have to meet.
Your job duties with trying to create templates for how we can do some of our community outreach projects and corporate giving and things. I thought from their experience working with our vendor programs that they could provide you some great insight into making programs scalable and
we discussed a lot of the vendor relations. What do we do to create an environment for our vendors that shows the values of Southwestern Energy? In working with the communities, you know, a lot of changes are made to the environment around that community or within the community. So they have a lot of programs within Southwestern that help show the community how safe we are and how we work with our vendors, because everyone is a reflection of Southwestern, even though they might not be a direct employee of Southwestern. I never ever thought that I would be working in this industry or move to a civilian position and actually be able to understand some of those things. It was really intimidating to me. It's been a complete culture change, professionally, personally, because you don't wear this to work, you know? You don't do your hair. So everything has been very different for me, and it's been awesome, and I think I really look forward to it.
The journey will continue in a moment.
Everything seemed fine. So I went ahead and went to bed. Slept a couple hours and woke up, and Shelby and the kids were gone.
She told me she was leaving and everything, and she wouldn't talk to me. She was being real short. Pretty much told me she hated me, and she regretted everything, ever being with me and stuff, and I lost it. I took one of my Camelbacks and poured all the alcohol I could find in it, and found a bottle that had some of my trazodone in it, and I just took them all with the alcohol. I don't know how I made it as far in life as I did without her before, and I don't know how I can make it through without her.
Matt Guillory, a casualty of a distant war, a wound that the world can't see. But Matt keeps going, making yet another start of his long journey. Tony has made the long journey from living in a car on the mean streets of LA to a home in the suburbs for himself and his family.
We're actually moving into our new home. We just got into it this morning, and the movers were already here waiting for us, so it's pretty nice.
Overall, it's hot. It's really hot, but yeah, I like it a lot.
The people are really nice, friendly. The environment, the neighborhood that I'm in now is great. I love my team. I mean, they're just a great bunch of guys, and they've helped me out a lot with understanding how the plant works and the equipment that I use every day. I mean, I feel great about it. I enjoy going to work every day.
In less time than he could ever have imagined, with the life-saving hand from vet hunters, Tony Wiley went from the heartache and despair of watching his family live in the back seat of a borrowed car to ground zero of America's energy future. It was more of a journey than Tony could ever have dreamed.
Tomorrow we'll be going up in a helicopter. One of the gentlemen here at Southwestern was kind enough and proactive enough to get me a ride in a helicopter to take some aerial views of what Southwestern has done out in the field. So I'm pretty excited about that. It's going to be an element that I'm comfortable in. It will be very different than the military because I'm not going to be in a flight suit. I'm not going to have the helmet. It's not a green helicopter. The weapons won't exist, of course, in your deployed environment. So it's going to be very different.
This day, Andrea is taking the controls of a light observation helicopter to perform some aerial reconnaissance, photographing various drilling sites to better serve Southwestern Energy's ground operations in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Now you're driving.
Now this is way different.
Yeah, you think.
She will then eventually relocate to Houston, Texas, with her family to serve as Southwestern Energy's Community Relations Manager. For Captain Aurata, now simply Andrea Bond, the journey home, after much hardship, heartbreak, and more than a little danger, is never quite over. But as she always has, Andrea never loses sight of her destination. And her destination is straight ahead. I hope you've enjoyed the personal stories of these three American heroes as much as I have. Together, we share their tragedies and their triumphs as they transition from military life through to their new civilian careers. But the journey is not complete. There are many more young Americans whose lives need to be helped by work. Work to provide for their families. Work to give their life meaning. I'm Vin Scully. Thank you for joining me.